Okay, we've focused on time management and controlling the events that are most important. So now we want to focus on building the productivity pyramid. And then we'll focus on the planning system. Okay, tell me what you know about pyramids.
Like a wide base.
Okay, large at the base, come to a point, which make them the most stable geometric structure that we know of. Okay, what else do you know about them? What culture comes to mind? What did the Egyptians use them for? Burial for whom? Pharaohs, right? Now, there were other people buried in the pyramids. If you were the servant of the Pharaoh, when the Pharaoh died, you got to protect his soul in the crypt. So you were buried with them, alive. So your life may be pretty posh when the Pharaoh's alive. It sucked after that. Okay? So the base of the pyramid is identifying the governing values. Okay? So we're going to focus on, at the base, laying the foundation first. What are values? Things important to us? Attributes. Things we live by, so they guide behavior to some degree. Okay, excellent. I like those. Benjamin Franklin, the values being at the base of the pyramid comes back to Benjamin Franklin. Tell me what you know about Ben. It's fun to see what people know about Ben Franklin. He's an inventor. What did he invent?
Potbelly stove. Did you do glass?
The Franklin stove, yeah.
The spectacle?
Bifocals.
Weird harmonica.
The harmonica. I wasn't aware of that one.
It's a certain harmonica.
Okay.
Or weird kind of playing harmonica.
Okay, a musical instrument of some kind. Okay. Was Yeah, he invented the printing press, or revised it. I don't remember whether he actually invented it. Okay, the methodology for it. He was ambassador to what country? France. Okay, so he traveled the world. When he was 27 years old, he felt like a failure. With all the things he was able to accomplish, he felt like he hadn't really accomplished much. So he asked himself two questions. What are the highest priorities in my life? And what am I doing about them? Ben Franklin sat down. He made a list of 12 governing values. Now, he called them his virtues. Okay? So he wrote the 12 of them down, and then he wrote a brief statement for each one, defining the virtue for himself. His top virtue: temperance, eat not to dullness, drink not to elevation. Any of you eat to dullness? The drink part I won't ask you. Okay, silence, he defined this way: speak not but what may benefit others or yourself. Avoid trifling conversation. So he defined the 12, and then he organized his life. He took the list to a Quaker friend of his. He says, I've decided I'm going to dedicate my whole life to perfecting these 12 virtues. What do you think? His friend said, that's really neat, man. Good idea. But thou should add humility to thy list. So, because of the respect he had for this friend, he added a 13th. He added humility. He defined it with 4 words: imitate Jesus and Socrates. Now, online, you can go online, Ben Franklin's Virtues, you can look that up, and it gives the whole list and the definitions for all of those. Okay? So he organized his life into 13-week cycles, each week focusing on a separate virtue, trying to perfect it, to find the balance in his life. His autobiography ends at age 57. 22 years later, at age 79, he writes these words in his memoirs. I feel I have achieved an oneness with all 12 of my virtues. Now, he didn't do anything with humility because he said, no, it wasn't mine, right? That was inflicted on me. It wasn't that important to me anyway, right? But the other 12, he felt like he'd made some substantial progress with those once he defined them. Now, was there an order of importance? Are some values more important than others? Sure, and so he identified that temperance was number one for him. Notice where chastity is at for Ben. Oh well. Okay, 3 steps of the Franklin process. As we identify the governing values, we're going to make a list. We're going to identify the values first, and then we will define them as Benjamin Franklin did, and then we'll prioritize. So we're going to walk through the same process that Ben Franklin went through. So let's start with identifying. You all know what an I-beam is, right? An I-beam is a structural steel beam that if you look at the end of it, it looks like a capital I. If you lay it on its side, it's an H-beam. Sorry, one of Hiram's jokes. Okay, we have this I-beam, 4 inches wide, 8 inches deep, 120 feet long. This is a long beam, almost half the length of a football field. Okay, we're going to take this I-beam, we're going to put it out here in the parking lot. We're just going to lay it right on the asphalt out there, right on the ground. Now I'm going to stand on one end. Let's see. I didn't ask in here. Anyone have a child under the age of 2? Rachel, what's your child's name? Hazel. And how old is she?
She's 2.
2? Fun. She just turned 2? Oh, cool. So she's 2.5. That's a great age, isn't it? Anyone have a $100 bill on them? Anyone?
I have gold.
You have gold?
Yeah.
Ooh. Sweet. Do you know what that's worth?
Not today. It's a
Okay.
percentage of troy
That's
ounce.
that's cool. I went into my savings and brought one just in case. Whose picture's on a $100 bill? Ben Franklin. Yeah, we love Ben. Okay, so we've got this I-beam out there, right, Rachel? You're on one end, I'm on the other. And I holler along the parking lot and I say, Rachel, if you'll walk across this beam and not slip and fall off either side and be here in 3 minutes, this $100 is yours. Would you come for $100? Okay. We'll take this I-beam now. We're going to haul it down south of Las Vegas. Any of you been to the Hoover Dam? Okay, on the border on the left-hand side is Nevada. On the right-hand side is Arizona. Okay? The Hoover Dam, this new bridge that they've built, at one point, it's 1,900 feet long, the bridge. And the span, let's see if this works. Oh, cool. The span from the bridge to the water is 890 feet. 3 football fields. That's how far the drop is. Now, before they completed the dam, this is what it looked like. They took a night shot of it, and you see the gap at the top. Now, this gap is 120 feet long, the length of our I-beam. Now, we're going to take our I-beam, and we're going to attach it across there. Okay, it's not going to fall. It's bolted to the truss on both sides. You're on one side, I'm on the other. I holler across, and I say, Rachel, if you'll walk across this beam and not slip and fall off either side and be here in 3 minutes, this 100 is yours. Gonna come?
No.
What if I have 1,000 of these? $100,000. All you have to do is walk across the top of the beam. Now you can't scoot, you have to walk.
And no rope?
No rope, it's just you. Not gonna do it? 10 million. 10 million you could invest at 10% and live off the interest, and it would never run out on you.
I might go up there and see.
Oh, so you're walking to the edge to look over, right?
I might look down.
In reality, would you walk across there?
No.
Okay, I'm not a nice guy anymore. I have Hazel on my side. I say, if you're not here in 3 minutes, I drop your daughter. Are you coming now?
Absolutely.
No hesitation now, right? Now, understand I wouldn't do that. The only reason that I put myself in the bad guy's shoes is to prove a point. Have we just identified some of Rachel's governing values? Does money have value for Rachel?
Yes.
Some. Does safety?
It's more.
More. What was more important? The love of her child. Now, when we identify our governing values, we simply ask the question, what would I cross the I-beam for? Is there an idea or a principle or a person that means so much to me that I would risk my life, or maybe even dedicate my life to this idea or this person? Okay? So that's what we're asking. Now, please understand that when you ask the question, what would I cross the I-beam for? Not all of your values would you risk your life for. You may have a couple or a few, maybe even just one. But by asking that question, you'll have some things start to filter into your mind that are very important to you, but you wouldn't risk your life for. One of my values is continual learning. If Rachel said to me, Gary, get across this beam, be here in 3 minutes or we'll strike you stupid, hit me at both sides of the head because I ain't coming. Now, it's important for me to be continually learning, but I'm not going to risk my life for that, right? So when we ask the question, what would I cross the I-beam for, as those things come into mind, I'm just going to have you write them down. So if you would take a separate piece of paper for this, and we'll do the values thing just on a separate piece. I want to have you ask the question, what would I cross the I-beam for? And I'm just going to give some quiet. And let you just a couple minutes, we're just going to take a couple minutes with this. I want to have you just write down what some of your values are. Now, later on, you may look at this and say, you know, really, that's not that important, but I thought about it in class, and so you can take it off your list. Most people add to their list. If I were to ask you, what are your highest priorities right now, you'd be able to rattle some stuff off. And on the drive home, you'd have 2 or 3 things pop into your head and say, ooh, that's about one of my values as well. Just so we normally don't think about them. Okay, so your exercise, identify your personal governing values. Okay, let's take just a couple minutes with it. Would you like some help? Okay, let me pop this up here. I wanted you to think of some of those that were forefront in your mind of your values. I'm going to put a list, just 3 columns of values up here. Some of them, it's just to give you some ideas on what may or may not be yours, just to give you some help. Now, once we've identified the values, now you can add as you think of new things and stuff. Now what we want to do is we want to do the next step, which is define the values. How many are familiar with clarifying statements? How many are familiar with positive affirmations? A positive affirmation is a positive statement written about me saying that I am a certain behavior even though I'm not yet. It's stating the ideal as if it were already real. I'm good enough. I'm smart enough, and doggone it, people love me. Stuart Smalley, Saturday Night Live. Right? Those are positive affirmations. Okay, so we're going to write these as an affirmation. You're going to write it as if you're already there, even though you're not yet. So each time you read it, you feed the positive into the subconscious part of your brain. It has a direct effect on how you act. Okay, a couple of examples. For the value of success, here are the clarifying statements. I do excellent work each day. I'm open to the ideas of others. Have a positive attitude. I'm loyal to the organization and its mission. And I am a team player. Now, all of those may be your clarifying statement if your value is success. But it may be the case that none of them are. Right? You may define it totally different. For the value of health, my affirmation, I am physically fit. I'm energetic and have adequate strength to accomplish the physical and mental tasks I undertake. I am physically active, getting enough exercise to help maintain a weight consistent with my height and build. With my weight, I actually should be 3 inches taller, but that's okay. Now, let me share with you. Now, you saw the simplicity of Ben Franklin's, right? Let me share with you a couple of my values. Now, when we get into the mechanics of the planning system, I use the address, the alphabetized tabs used to be where I'd keep address and phone numbers, right? Do we do that anymore? Where do you keep address and phone numbers? Generally, in your phone, right? In your phone, but some of it, I have some written down as well, Mallory, so we're okay there. Okay, so under my V tab, I have my list of governing values. Here's my value for loving husband. I love my wife with all my heart and I love her unconditionally. I tell her that I love her every day. When I'm with her, I show that I love her by being, touchy-feely. I had this experience with my son, my second youngest. One of my values, I am a great father. Wow, sorry. I had him score me on these, on a score of 0 to 10. You want to read these for me? I never yell at my children or lose my temper with them. I discipline, but never in a degrading way. I show them an increase in love after I've disciplined so they understand why. He gave me a 10. Now, he didn't give me all 10s. He scored me a little bit lower on this one. I spend quality time with my children as a group and individually. I listen closely to them when they talk to me, and I praise them when they do what's right. We spend quality one-on-one time sharing feelings, fears, and special moments. Sorry. And he said that's where I need to improve. One-on-one time with each of the kids. Now I read these, right? And I think I'm doing okay with them, but it's interesting to get a score. Have your kids give you a scorecard, or have my wife. That's what I'm planning to do, is read these. Okay. I already know what my score is going to be. I need to go to night school with this. But okay, so I want to have you that's just to kind of give you a feel of it. Didn't mean to get all touchy-feely with it. But would you go ahead? I'm going to give you a couple minutes. I'll leave these up here. Would you write some positive affirmations defining, just pick one of your values. Just any one you want to pick. Write that. And you can do just one on a page if you'd like with this. Write the value. And then write some positive affirmations, some statements defining what that means to you personally. Realize it doesn't have to be perfect. That the wordsmithing on this you're going to do once you get away from here and say, ooh, I don't like the wording of that, I'll change it. And you'll be able to change it. Even though you're doing it in pen, they have erasers now that erase ink. Any questions? Okay, let's just take a couple minutes defining. Let's define two of your values. Let's do it this way. Do one that's more personal and one that's more work related. If one of your values ties into behavior at work, would you define one of those as well? Okay. Okay. Now, thank you for the effort you put into that. I noticed that most of you are writing the whole time, right? When you start into this process, now you're going to take some time away to do this on your own and be able to go through and define all of the values. You don't have to do it all at once. You'll be thinking about it on your drive home, right? And this evening, and about how you would define your governing values. But once we have them defined, now we can prioritize them. We actually walked through that process with Rachel, didn't we? 3 values, what were they? Safety, money, family, right? And what was the highest? Family, and then? Safety, and then money, right? Now, it may be different for some people. Right? Now, you have to understand, we don't do the I-beam. I never do that with a teenage. I did that one time, and the guy said, I'll pay you. Right? One coming the other way. Okay, good. So the prioritizing process, once you go through and identify those, would any of your values ever come in direct conflict to where you had to choose between them? I have a value that says I am financially secure. I have one that says I am totally honest. Do they ever come in direct conflict? Yeah, every April 15th. Just kidding. Okay. Prioritize the values. So that's identifying, that's the values at the base, 3 steps. Identify, define, and prioritize. Okay, now the second tier is to set goals. So let's define a goal. The Oxford Dictionary defines a goal as the object to which effort or ambition is directed, the destination of a journey. So it's somewhere that we're trying to get to or achieve, and part of it is the destination of getting there. Okay, so let me share with you some tips for goal setting, and then we're going to walk through the process of setting a goal. Number 1, you have to write it down. A goal not written is only a wish. You've heard that saying before, right? It has to be written on paper. The second one, it needs to have a deadline. Something that you know where the end point is, so that in sports, any of you play sports or have your children play sports, right? They have a clock, and you gauge the energy that you put into it based on the score, obviously, but the end of the game, right, as the clock gets closer. So if we have a deadline set, it helps drive me toward getting the things done that help me accomplish the goal. Break it down into doable chunks. How do we eat an elephant? 1 bite at a time. And then the obvious one is to commit to it. Ben Franklin's virtue was the same one, right? The one that was inflicted on him. He never committed to it. He said it wasn't his. I love this quote from Mark Twain. The secret of getting started is breaking your complex, overwhelming tasks into small, manageable tasks, and then starting on the first one. How basic is that? Right? Break it into small things and pick one and get after it. In essence, is what he's telling us. So goals are effectively planned when they are. Now, when we talk about goal setting, how many of you had a course on goal setting before? Any of you? Are you familiar with SMART goals? Anyone know what they are? Jared, are you familiar with SMART goals? S stands for what?
Simple, I think.
Simple, specific. They use both of those words are used there. Excellent. M is for measurable. A is for achievable. R is for realistic or relevant. Some organizations use relevant there. And T is for time bound. Now, notice as we go through these that the SMART goals are kind of covered in there. Aligned with my governing values, deadline driven, clearly and specifically defined, owned, which means they're mine. It can't be a goal that someone else has inflicted on me. Any of you ever have inflicted goals as you were growing up? They were goals of your parents, not really yours. And they have to be realistic. If I have a goal that I know is not realistic, I won't put any energy into it. Just won't happen. Okay. Here's the goal planning page of the Franklin Planner. Okay, and I use these a lot. These are great pages. They help me to line out, right? So it walks me through the steps of these. Let me share just a couple of examples with you. In fact, let's do one together. Who has a goal to go somewhere? Australia, Tahiti, Hawaii, on vacation? Anyone have a goal that we want to go somewhere? Mallory, where are you going?
Bali.
You going to Bali? Okay, so we're going to write this. Got to have a marker that works. Go to Bali. Okay. Do you suppose there's a value that drives why? Now think of the values that you've been writing down there. Is there a value that drives why Mallory would go to Bali? So we're going to put this up here, right? Because at the top of the page we have the values up here. What's a couple of values that could drive why she wants to go to Bali?
One of my values is travel, so.
Adventure.
But okay, so adventure, right? So adventure, learning, so the experience, right?
Family time.
Family. Would help to come in there? Could for some, right? Depending on where you're going. Now, she may just have one that drives why she would do it, but she could have a list of more than one. Okay, so these are the values driving why, maybe driving why she would go to Bali. Okay, we need a deadline. When do you want to go?
Next summer.
The beginning of the summer? End of the summer?
August
August what?
2021. What day?
Yeah. Got to have a deadline, right?
The 8th.
Okay, August 8th. So let's go 8/8/2020. Is that realistic?
Oh, 2021.
Oh, I'm sorry. My bad. Realistic?
Yep.
Okay, now it is. Yeah. Okay, so that's the deadline. Now, let's make a list. What are all the things she needs to do to go to Bali? Okay, so finance is part of that. Is that a bite-sized piece or a meal? Okay, what are some tasks associated with finances?
Maybe an extra income or jobs, savings.
Okay, so we could do a part-time job to make extra income. Would you have a separate account set aside for Bali?
It's a good idea.
Okay, so in the financial, one of the tasks would be to open an account, specifically for Bali. How do you know how much it's going to cost?
Research.
So who do you talk to?
Google.
Okay, so I'm going to Google. Old school, what would I do?
Travel agent.
Talk to a travel agent, right? So that we could do a travel agent. Anything else in the financial area?
Might need a passport.
Okay, passport, different area, right? So are there tasks associated with getting a passport? Okay, yeah, we're going to have to pay for it.
You might have to get shots if you don't have.
Okay, so under passport, we have vaccinations. Is that 2 C's? Is that right? Yeah, so vaccinations that we'll have to have.
While you're there, so that's gonna be an expense.
We what?
You need to eat.
Okay, so we're going to figure out our budget based on where we're going to eat, where we're going to stay, car rental, how long we're going to be there, all that stuff. What else with the passport?
Get the photo done.
Okay, we're going to have a photo.
You have to fly.
We're going to have to fill out an application. Mallory, is anyone going with you?
Yes.
Who's going?
My fiance.
Okay. So, are you going to ask the fiance? Are you going to talk to him about it?
Yeah.
Okay. So, is that one thing on your list? What's his name?
Lowell. L-O-W-L-L.
It's a task, isn't it? Now, you may talk to him right up front. You may talk to him some people say, no, I want to get it all planned and surprise them with it. Okay. Okay, now, there are a lot more tasks. When I first did this, my goal was to go to Hawaii. I had 110 tasks when I was done. I sat down and it's on a piece of paper, I thought of everything that I could think of that would make for a great trip to Hawaii. And then I got invited to President's Club with Franklin Covey, and they paid for it. It was awesome. Anyway, okay, so, but which of these would you do first?
I would talk to Lowell first.
So Lowell's first? Now, eventually, where does that have to show up to get done? If you're going to talk to Lowell, where would you write that?
My planner.
On your planner, on your to-do list, right? On the prioritized daily task list. So when are you going to do this? When would be a good time to talk to Lowell about Bali?
Today.
Today? Okay, so you'd add that to your task list for today, right? Talk to Lowell regarding Bali. Does he know at all?
Yeah.
Okay, so you've been doing, okay, excellent. Okay, so now once you've talked to Lowell, what would you do next? Now you've already talked to Lowell a little bit about it. What would be next?
Research.
What are you going to research first?
Actually, I would probably set a budget for the trip.
Okay, so you can do that.
And then do some research to see.
Now this is going to revise, isn't it?
Yeah.
Very simply, that's the idea of the goal setting process. Now we just walked through the steps, right? We identified the goal, the values driving why we would do it. Now, in essence, we could do it the opposite way. I could look at my values and say, okay, I am a loving husband. What can I do to bring my behavior in line with how I've defined that? And that would help me set the goal. In reality, the base of the productivity pyramid, right, your values, should drive the goals. You buy that? Now, sometimes we do it the other way around. We look at the goal. We always have something we want to do, and we look at that and say, okay, what value is driving that? Why do I really want to do that? You can do it either way. But to be proactive, you want to look at your value. If I have a value of adventure, I'll say, okay, what's something I could do that would bring my behavior in line with what I've defined for adventure. Okay, are you okay with the goal planning step on that? Okay, so here's another example. I am successful in my work. Remember our value? We wrote the positive affirmation, right? Here's my goal. I will successfully accomplish my part of my team's 3 main objectives by August 31st. In the next month, I'll have those 3 things done. My part of that. Okay? Now, for the fitness goal. By October 12th, I will be aerobically fit, exercising a minimum of 30 minutes per day, 4 days per week. Is that wimpy or what? But see, if I'm doing no minutes, no days a week, that's pretty lofty, isn't it? Okay. If I haven't been doing any exercise at all, what would be realistic, time-wise, for start? If I want to get my heart rate up, how long should I get it up if I'm just starting? 20 minutes? Wow, that's tough. 5. I'm with you, Rachel. In fact, I'll do 10. I'm really stretching out there. So 10 minutes, and how often are we going to do it? A couple times a week? Is that okay? If I have a goal to get my heart rate up for 10 minutes twice a week, is that okay to start? Is it okay for me to exceed the goal? Okay, so I may find that I did it 3 times a week and I did it for the 20 minutes. But see, now I can set a goal to jump that up as I go for what's realistic. So you have to realize that I'm actually, by October 12th, I want to build to this point. Right? What I'm going to do next week is not going to be this. Right? That's going to be in October. I'll work to that point. Are you okay with keep the goal? The key to the goal planning is the simplicity of it. Right? You have to keep it simple. Okay. Let's go back to the first goal. Accomplish your part of the team's objectives by August 31st. Now I'm just going to let you read over those. Those are just some specific things that we've identified we can do to meet our part of the objectives. Sherry, by the way, is a manager. That's why I'm speaking with her about what we can do to help the team meet its objectives, other things. Does that make sense? Now, these things eventually need to show up where? In your plan or on your to-do list. At some point, these are going to have to show up in your to-do list. At least parts of them, right? Now, I'm not going to read Building Better Teams. How many pages am I going to read on a given day? 10, 20? Now I read slowly. And so I don't read as many pages. My wife and I don't read together because I'm halfway down the page when she says, turn the page. So I don't read with her. I let her read on her own. Okay? So this part, we're identifying these specific things, but they eventually have to show up in the task list. Okay? Take a look at the second one, the physically fit one. Now, what do I have to do to get a physical exam? Schedule an appointment. So that's on my to-do list, isn't it? When are you going to do that? If the goal is to have that by the end of the month, when am I going to schedule a physical exam with my physician? Today. Yeah, this afternoon. Okay? But then I get to check that off my list. See, the book references for Todd. Todd's given me some, he does really well on the nutritional part of that. So I just want to have a reference from him. How hard is that? How long does that take? 2 minutes to call Todd and say, what are a couple of good books that you've read on nutrition? And cha-ching, I check that off my list. Are you okay with the thought process that goes into this? The values drive why we're doing what we're doing. The goal is what we're going to do, and how we're going to do it. That's the steps. Eventually, they will show up on my prioritized daily task list in my planner. Okay. The next step is to plan weekly. Okay, so we've got this big thing, we've got the goals planned out over the long term. Now, what about this week? What am I going to do in the next 7 days? Excuse me, that will make the difference. Here are the steps for the weekly planning. Now, realize I'm going through this, we're just kind of going through making these lists that will help us get the go through. So if you want to just jot down some key words, feel free to do that. Now, these you'll use at different times as we go through. See the 3 steps of the weekly planning. How often do I do weekly planning? Very good, right? Yeah, we do that weekly, right? So once a week, I'm going to think through these 3 steps. Review my values and goals. Now, we're going to build those, right? We're going to have those in place, and we're going to just read over those to refresh in my mind what my highest priorities are and what I'm doing about them. The second step is to choose the big rocks. How many are familiar with big rocks? Okay, the big rocks represent those things that are most important. And then I will schedule my week. Okay, more detail on the big rocks. The big rocks, the most important things, can come from 4 different areas. They can come from your conscience. How does that work? What does that mean, that they come from my conscience? Anyone?
Does that mean it's just something that you want to do and you've chosen for yourself?
Okay, something that I've chosen for myself that I want to do, right? And my conscience is telling me you should be doing this if it's something you really want. So it's a kind of a should thing that we feel we should be doing, right? Maybe based on other responsibilities. Could come from my values, and we define values as what? Our highest priorities. Could come from my goals, steps to help me to accomplish my goals. This could be talking to Lowell. That's a big rock, isn't it, Mallory? Could be identifying the budget. Okay, and then the last one is key projects that you may be working on. Project management and goal setting, in essence, are the same thing, are they not? It's taking the elephant, breaking it into the bite-sized pieces, and then handling the pieces one at a time. Big rocks can be tasks or appointments or areas of focus. Now, here's the difference. A task is time flexible. Something I want to do, but I can do it at some time during the day. An appointment is time specific. Appointments have a start time. They should also have what? An end time. Okay? And where do we write those? On our calendar, right? On our schedule, in our planner. So on my planner, when I open it up, on the left-hand side, I have my task list. On the right-hand side of the left page, I have my appointment schedule. Okay? Or it could be just some area of focus. And here are just 3 tips. When do you do your weekly planning? You do it before your week starts. Doesn't make sense to do that later on, right? Oh yeah, I did this, so I'll just put that on my list and cross it off. You want to do it where it's quiet, and you want to do 20 to 30 minutes. Now, 20 to 30 minutes seems like a long time. My grandpa taught me so much stuff. One of the things I always remember him telling me, he said, for every 1 minute you spend planning, you save 3 to 4 minutes in action. So if I'm spending 30 minutes during the day, what do I get back? Hour and a half, couple hours, right? And I found that to be true. For each, now this is the weekly planning, so over the course of the week, right, I'm going to gain couple of hours over the course of the week. Okay. The weekly compass card will fit in my plastic page finder, may I?
Yeah.
I'm just showing them the plastic page finder. The plastic page finder has a little pocket that the compass card will fit down into. Thank you. Thank you. It looks like this. Okay, and each week when I do my weekly planning, thank you, I'm going to identify specific things that I want to do just in that role. So my role of sharpening the saw, which is habit 7 of the 7 habits of highly effective people, right? It's all about me. How do I sharpen my saw? Physical, social, emotional, mental, and spiritual. So under the physical, I'm going to do yoga 3 times. This is not my list, by the way. I don't do yoga. I don't do flex. Okay? So I'm going to have dinner with Josh and Marie. For the mental part, I'm going to read the professional journal. For the spiritual part, I'm going to spend 1 hour at the river. I just like to go sit. That's where I do my reading. Right? So I feed 2 birds with 1 crumb. Okay, as a spouse, my role of spouse, I'm going to plan a weekend getaway. Nothing extravagant, just for Jamie and I go away, stay overnight, just to relax, just to get away. As a team leader, I'm going to hold the team meeting regarding the communication plan, and I'm going to recognize specific team contributions. As a parent, I'm going to shop for school clothes with Russ, and I'm going to be a better listener. And as a volunteer, I'm going to research adult literacy programs. See, those are not big, massive things. Researching adult literacy program, how long would that take? Could I take just 30 minutes on the computer and find a lot of stuff there? Okay, so that's my weekly compass. At the beginning of the week, I list that. Those are the things that I want to focus on for me. Okay. Now, the daily planning process. Now, we didn't spend tons of time on the weekly because the weekly is looking at big picture, right? All 7 days, what do I want to accomplish? Now, in the daily planning process, here are the 3 steps there. Look at your appointments first because they are time specific. Appointments are no longer your time. You've committed that time to someone else. Make a realistic list based on the time that you have. Now, what else do we have to plan in there? Interruptions, right? How many are guaranteed interruptions every day again? Okay, so you want to make sure you set some time aside for those, knowing they'll be there. We don't know what they are yet. Number 3, prioritize. Now, we're going to walk through that process. The ABC is the value. The 1, 2, 3 is the sequence, the order. And we'll go through a specific example with that in the next segment. Okay, in the prioritizing, now this is just a review. Remember we had the little blue circles and we put them up there. Vital was the A's, they must be done. B's were what? Do you remember? This is a test. Okay, should be done. They were important, right? And so what about the C's? Anyone? Could be done. Optional. Excellent. Excellent. Okay, now we get that in our head, and then it makes the prioritizing easy with that. One more thing on the daily planning. Here are the tips. 3 same tips we were talking about with the weekly, but for the daily, I can do it. How many of you are morning planners? Okay, how many plan at night before you go to bed? Okay. I'm a morning planner, but there are times when if I'm going to teach a class early the next morning, I just do it the night before. It doesn't, for me, it's okay. It's not really critical when I do it. For others, it is. Any of you not morning people? So that's why, right? That's why I plan at night, right? Because that's when I'm most alert. Okay. You have to do it where it's quiet, and you all know that, those of you who have done that. You have to be able to focus. And that's 5 to 10 minutes. Okay, let's say we do 10 minutes for our daily planning, and we do 30 minutes for our weekly planning. This is a test. Here's your math test. Over the course of a week, how much time will I spend in formal planning, daily and weekly? Add it up in your head. How much? 90 minutes. Okay. Anyone else? So 30 minutes plus if I do 10 minutes every day for 7 minutes, right? So 100 minutes. So just over an hour and a half. How much do I get back? According to my grandpa, how much do I get back? 3 to 4 for every minute? Yeah, say 5 or 6 hours. So the planning is critical. Now, do I have to be flexible in my plan? We'll show you how. Okay, so we've covered the time management, the event control. We've introduced you to the daily and weekly planning. We're getting into that in more detail. We've gone through the goal planning. We've identified, defined, and prioritized our values. So when we come back for the next segment, we'll focus on the planning system. We will make you deadly with your Franklin Day Planner.